Welcome back to episode 2 of Back to the Grid. We are at Brands Hatch this weekend and I'm back with James Ellison, reliving some of your memories from over the years in the British Superbike Championship. So first up, Brands Hatch. It's one of the most iconic circuits on the calendar. It's a fantastic place. The fans love it. We always have great momentum going in there. It's a favourite of yours, of course. But I suppose it comes at a crucial point because, over the past few years, Brands Hatch has been on the calendar. I know the calendar has been subject to change over the years. It comes in the mid-section of the season. So the first half has kind of been and done. Now it's down to sort of, you're coming up to the showdown in a couple of rounds' time. So how important is it to have a good weekend around this circuit?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Brands is always a tricky one. It's either the end of the season or the middle of the season. It's a big turning point. The end of the season, people are fighting for contracts and championships, but the middle of the season, it's a chance for people to kind of reset. Maybe people have set off on the wrong foot and haven't quite got into a rhythm. It's a chance for them to go, right, hang on a minute. Middle of the season, we're not giving up hope yet. Let's just recheck, or maybe go to a test beforehand and make sure that they get away from Brands Hatch having a good round, because they know if they leave Brands on that bad foot, if they're still on that bad foot, it's detrimental to the championship. You're never really going to come back from it. So Brands Hatch for me is like a massive it's a tipping point for the championship, whether you're in a good position or a bad position. It's that point where you really need to make an impact and make sure you come out of there with a positive round. So there's a lot of pressure in it. It's kind of like going into the final round, but at the middle of the year. It's weird. It's a weird feeling.
Setting you up for the second half, really.
Exactly.
Though,
yeah.
And just let's rewind. We're talking about you, James, and we're talking about your career. 2014, I suppose, was a milestone that I think a lot of BSB fans will remember. You had such momentum that you were really at home on the bike, and then you came into Brands. You were confident. You had all the ingredients for a fantastic weekend. What happened, and how did you feel walking away from that weekend in 2014?
Well, I didn't walk away. That was the problem. Yeah. It was tough. It was a tough pill to swallow. I mean, I still remember going into the medical centre, and after I obviously crashed. Sorry, I'll rewind a little bit. I crashed leading the race. I had a decent race in race 1, and then in race 2, I think it was, I knew I needed to get away from shaking. I had the confidence to do it. I had the pace to do it. So we pulled a bit of a gap early on in the early stages, and we got a couple of seconds lead. And then I saw the pit board was coming down like a tenth, and then the next lap it come down another tenth. So I thought, right, I just need to step it up. I felt like I still had something in reserve, which is unbelievable position to be in. I was comfortable on the bike, JG Speedfit I think it was. I was happy on the bike, I was comfortable with myself, I was at my peak fitness. I was like, right, I've got a bit in the tank, let's just step it up. And all that happened, coming down to Dingle Dell, for those who don't know, is at the back of the circuit. Down into Dingle Dell, and I remember just going over to the white line a tiny bit, and that was it. The white line was still a bit damp, so as soon as my rear tyre touched that, I felt like I was in control. As soon as the rear tyre touched that, obviously sent it onto the grass and then flicked me off. And I remember getting up, and I did actually try and walk off. I crawled over to the wall, and I was like, it's on video, people on YouTube.
I was going to say, I think we actually have the footage somewhere.
Yeah,
and you did get up, and you kind of started, as you say, hobbling away to the side.
I hobbled over and I sat down. I looked down at my leathers, and I remember my leathers were completely burst open. So I looked inside, and all I could see was my kneecap, not my actual knee, my kneecap. There was blood everywhere, and I was like, oh fuck's sake! And you can actually see me look up the sky, and all I said was, for fuck's sake.
Classic James.
And then obviously the pain started to kick in, so they got the green whistle out, and I remember it like it was yesterday. They took me to the medical centre, and I think it was Ellison in there. That's bad that I know them by name. Well, I went in, and she'd give me a quick X-ray, came back out, and she went, bloody hell, you know how to crash, don't you? Meaning that I've done some damage. So unfortunately we had that I had a bar in my femur, and the problem, it wasn't actually on the impact that I broke it. A lot of people don't know this, but when the bike flicked me up, the force of my knee on the foot peg flicking it up, the force of that, there was nowhere for the bar wasn't going to bend, it wasn't going to snap. So the only way for that force, the only place for the force to go was to snap the top of my hip off. So I ended up snapping the widest part of my hip. So
is that the one that you actually had to have taken out and reconstructed somewhat after this crash?
Yeah.
So the original femur break had to be. Talk us through that.
The original femur break, which was 2010, there was a nail inside my femur. So because that nail was in there, if I'd have had it taken out, I probably would have just snapped my femur.
Okay.
Which would have
just
been all right. But because it was in there, it was like, right, well, the force was like, I've got nowhere to go. Snapped the top of my hip off. So when I had the surgery, they had to pull the nail back out. And I say nail, it was about that, the full length of my femur.
Yeah.
They had to take that out, and now have a dynamic hip screw, which has bolted my femur basically back to my pelvis. So,
well, this whole right-hand side now,
and
I
now
think
we're doing it again.
I think you're kind of like, what's that guy at the Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man?
Yeah,
if he was made of metal. Because the knee up to the hip, you're pretty much bionic,
like
aren't you? Yeah.
Terminator, yeah. So it was, it was a tough one, because that for me, if you were to ask me, like, what year do you think that was your year? That was your year to win the championship. I mean, we finished runner-up once, we finished third twice in the championship, finished second once in 2009. But if you'd have asked me what was the year that you thought was your chance at the championship, and we were going back to bad luck before, that was it. 2015 for me, everything was right. You know, everything felt right, and I was an inch off line. One mistake, and that was it. But
it's all it takes in this game, though, isn't it? It's marginal. You know, it's a tiny error of judgment in a millisecond that can cost you something like that.
It is. So yeah, I've got good and bad memories of Brands Hatch.
Fast forward a year then to 2015, and you returned to Brands. It was on the Indy track. Completely different year to 2014. You know, you were back. You were somewhat a formidable force around there. You know, you were in essence unbeatable. How was it in 2015, and how much confidence did you have returning to Brands after the 2014 escapade?
The short circuit, which it's not one of my favourites. I don't think it's many people's favourite, just because there's not much to it. It's a fun little track, but you almost feel like after about half race distance, you've just got one continuous train of bikes. So it's always a difficult one. It's always one that if you're up near the front somewhere, you kind of want to get away. And that was my train of thought when I was there. I thought, right, well, get in the lead. I felt comfortable. We'd come off the back of 2014 with a big injury, so I've been training my ass off all winter. We came back, bike was amazing, happy with the team, back with the Kawasaki team again. And the whole weekend it just worked, everything just worked, everything just clicked. I felt comfortable, got into the race, knew I had to get away. Kianara was probably my strongest competitor. He wasn't shaky for once at Brands Hatch, which he usually is. So I remember Kia was there, and I thought, right, I'm just going to have to try and drop him in the first 2 laps. And every lap I passed my pit board, I kept seeing the gap going up and up and up, and I thought, this is too easy. And I kind of looked around and I thought, right, he's still there, I can still see him, but he didn't seem like a threat. And then a red flag came out, and I was like, oh, typical. So obviously they cleared everything up, green flag came again, we set off again, and I just did exactly the same thing, and the lap was coming down again. And fast forward another 4 red flags, and every time they restarted the race, I just seemed to be able to turn the tap on and just disappear. And it was weird, because I can't remember a time before or even since then that I've been in that position and felt that comfortable. And I was the same in both races, and I could swear Higgsy was trying to, because you know what he's like, he wants to put a show on, and I'm not being big-headed, but it looked like I was just going to run away with the thing. And I remember the exact feeling I remember back then. To this day, I remember, like, if I watch TV now, we've been watching Kyle all season, even last year, but especially this year on the Ducati, I kind of felt how I think, looking at Kyle, when I watch Kyle, that's exactly how I felt back then, where he's in control, he's fast, doesn't look like he's stepping out of his boundaries, his comfort zone, and he's got a little bit in reserve. If someone was to push him, he would have a little bit left. He just seems to be not making any mistakes, and that is exactly how I felt then. That's all I can relate it to. But yeah, it was a fantastic weekend, and we came away with a double, so I still think to this day that was probably the best weekend I've had.
So James, talking about the GP track at Brands, it is regarded as probably the pinnacle of tracks in the UK. It is, you know, highly regarded by racers and fans alike. You know, it has a bit of everything, and apart from the fact it's like being in a national park, what makes Brands Hatch so brilliant as a circuit to race at?
That's exactly it. It's a national park, you know, and that's why it's so exclusive. There's not many track days there during the season. Every time the track day date comes out, within seconds it's booked, because everybody wants to go there. You know, we used to have World Superbikes there back in the day, and you ask the fans or go on YouTube and have a look. The era of, say, 2000, Fogarty, Bayliss, you know, Rubens House, all those guys, they'd have over 150,000 people there. The fans were incredible, and it's weird because even driving in now, I know we don't get the same amount of fans, but even driving in now, you still get that feeling, you still get that sense that there's 100,000 people watching you. Even out the back, there's probably 20 lads there with a couple of cans of Stella sat on the corner that have camped out the night. There's no one else there. The rest of the paddock looks full in the midsection, but down the back, you've only got a handful of people. It's really weird. So you've got all this, in the first part of the circuit, which we call the Indy, you've got all the paddock staff, you've got all the, obviously, all the spectators on the bankings lined up up to the medical centre, and it's completely rammed every single weekend we go there. And then out the back, you've literally just got
it's like a different world,
it's
isn't it?
weird, yeah. It's like two different circuits, and I think that's what's exciting about it. It's I can't even put it into words. It's an incredible circuit, and I think a lot of it stems from its history back in the World Superbike days of having just that huge fan base there, and every time somebody leaves there, there's another champion. There's a world champion or a British champion.
It's a very historic track. I suppose,
it is, yeah. And it is a fun track to ride as well. You've got that kind of simplistic part of the first third of the circuit, and then out the back it's just balls to the wall so fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an incredible place to ride.
And does it ever, going back to Brands Hatch, does it ever get old? You talk about that feeling of going through the gates. You can see when you talk about it, you're smiling. You're obviously thinking about all the great days you've had out there. Do you ever pitch up and go, I know you love riding bikes, but the way you go to some circuits and you're like, oh geez, I'm kind of dreading going here. Brands Hatch just brings back nothing but great memories, I think, for you, does it?
Yeah, I think every time we go there, I wish we were at a free practice on a Wednesday and a Thursday. You never get enough of it, and you leave and you go, oh God, when's the next one? And it's not till the following year, so it's just oh God. But yeah, it would never grow old, never grow old. I've got good memories there. Won the European Superbike Championship back in the day. Did that, then went and sat on the banking with my top off watching the World Superbike boys ride around. It's incredible, and and I've been there. Like I said earlier on, I've finished runner-up in the Superbike Championship before. It wasn't at that round. I can't remember where we ended that season. But
Silverstone, was it?
Probably Silverstone, yeah, in 2009. But the other couple of times where we have still been in a shout for the championship, it's so intense being at Brands Hatch and knowing, like I said before.
There's an eeriness about it or something.
Yeah,
there's a sense
really weird.
of I don't know what it is. It's like there's a cloud kind of descends.
When you were saying that then, describing it, the cloud, you're kind of inside it, and all the bankings are high up, and you've got all the gantries and everything. Yeah, you feel like everybody is kind of looking down on you. So that is exactly it. I've never really been able to pinpoint what it is about it, but it is that you feel like you're being watched everywhere. You can't really escape until you get out the back. So yeah, it's incredible place.
Something, James, that has kind of followed you around with fans and, spectators alike, I suppose, and something kind of that I would hear a lot of maybe outside our awning is the unlucky label. You've been, as you say, runner-up in the BSB Championships, you've had a couple of thirds, you've had near misses, be it mechanicals, crashes at crucial points in your season. I hate to say it, but how does that make you feel? How does it ever get to you? Did it ever get to you when you were racing? Or did you kind of learn to sort of brush it off?
God, I knew you were going to say that.
To be honest with you, I don't think it. It's just these people to come up to the awning and I'm like, will you ever go away? And
Well, he could have done this and he could have
I know. I'm going, but sure, I could have been bloody Superman. But anyway.
Yeah. If my auntie had balls, she'd be my uncle.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be like that. But how does it affect you? That's what I want to know.
Do you know what? The correct answer is probably you make your own luck. But in the words of Chris Walker, if I was a duck, I'd sink. That's exactly how I felt sometimes. The likes of Brands Hatch, the likes of Snetterton, who we were talking about in one of the other...
In the previous episode.
Yeah, in the previous episode. There's times where you've turned up and you've been the fastest person there, or if not one of the fastest there, certainly the top three, every single weekend. And it'd be an electrical, it'd be a bracket that broke, or it'd be... And I'm not making excuses. I mean, everyone thinks that the rider's, excuse book is huge, but... Example, Milwaukee, 2013, the year I was with Milwaukee. We had a fantastic year there. It was the first year I came back from MotoGP, so there was a lot of pressure on me. Sean Muir, I'd ridden for him before. Great, Mick Shanley was my crew chief, great relationship with him. So I was in a really comfortable place, and we started off strong in testing, started off strong in the first few rounds. I think we won the first round. And then it was like, right, this is it, we can win the championship. And then like a stupid little bracket break, or I think we had a lot of problems with engines that year. the engine builder, was having a lot of issues with parts. It was one of the first years that Yamaha came out. And it seemed to be that every time that something broke on the bike, I was in a podium position. I remember having a bit of a fallout with the team at the end of the year, and they were saying about not really performing as well as I should have done, and blah, blah, blah. And I literally listed everything down on a piece of paper, and I was like, right, this is the position I was in when I pulled in at this race, and this was the problem, and this was the issue, and that was the issue. 90% was all engine failures in a podium position. And I was like, and we still finished 4th in the championship. I'm like, lads, look, we've had 10 DNFs and we finished 4th in the championship. And it seemed to be, and I'm not bitching or moaning or anything, but yeah, when people say, oh, he was unlucky, yeah, in a lot of ways, I feel like I was. Or the time in 2014 when I snapped my femur, I was on top of the world. I was doing everything right. Tiny little mistake. The white line was wet. I shouldn't have gone the white line. But yeah, there was just a lot of things in my career where I kind of feel like I maybe deserved a bit more. And it's not a bitterness or anything, but I just feel like, yeah, I was just a little bit unlucky because we put the work in. Anyone who actually knows me knows that I put 1,000,000% in every single day, every single week, every single race, every single season. And the majority of the time I was let down by a mechanical. And the problem is then you might have a couple of crashes because you've had a string
pushing out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, you've had a string of 3 or 4 rounds where you've had things break and you're thinking, right, well, I've dropped down the championship now. And you're not in that, when I was talking about Kyle earlier, being in that zone where you're just comfortable and you're at a pace where you've got a bit in reserve. You don't have any reserve now because you all of a sudden you have to perform because you've 3 DNFs.
Yeah.
The DNFs are from mechanicals, but you've still got 3 DNFs and you have to make up for that. So you then have to find another 10% that you maybe didn't have before. And that puts you out of your comfort zone, and then you end up crashing. So then you're known as a crasher.
It's a knock-on effect,
yeah. So it was a difficult one. We did have, everyone's had rough seasons, but I do believe that I was slightly unlucky. So yeah, I'll agree with them.
When you say unlucky, though, I look and I think, Jesus, how many people when when they're young and they say, I dream of being a sports star, or I dream, you did get to that level. Nobody can ever strip you of the accolades that you have achieved in your career. But I suppose one thing that maybe, do you ever sort of go, God, I would have loved to have maybe, you get people you see them go and they have this big swan song, Obviously, you kind of announced your sort of premature retirement just before COVID. We were in lockdown for more or less 3 years. Do you ever kind of think that swan song as such was taken away from you, or would you never, you're quite a positive person, so I know you do try and see the positives, but does that ever sort of, impede on when you arrive into the BSB Championship? I know you're very content in the F900 competition, but do you ever kind of look on and go, Jesus, I should still maybe be tipping away at that?
Oh yeah, every single round, every single time I pull up and I see the boys and I see Haslam and I see Bridewell,
the glint in the eye comes back.
Oh yeah, no, it's never gone. Yeah, well, it was disappointing, to be honest, because we did end up finishing a bit early because my plans were kind of not to stay in the UK. So I kind of announced my retirement, and then things completely changed. But then when that happened, lockdown happened, and then
you couldn't really do damage control.
It's not like you can just turn around and go, oh, by the way, I'm still here. I can still run at the front.
Yeah.
Those rides have gone to younger riders, guys that deserve the ride. So the seats weren't there anymore. So then I kind of took a step back. Stuart Higgs and the organiser at MSV very kindly gave me a job looking after the young kids, looking after the Sportbike class back then, which was the Kawasaki class. And as you know, you travelled around with me doing that. I was very content doing it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed passing my experience on to the younger riders and kind of giving them a bit of a leg up on, right, this is the kind of mistakes I made that you don't want to mistake, or that you don't want to make. Sorry, or I can see where this sort of ride is starting to steer off path a little bit and try and rein them back in and not make that mistake. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the coaching side of stuff. So I was settled with it. I wasn't bitter that I had finished early. But on the flip side of that, if somebody gave me a Superbike now and said, you've got to go and race next weekend, I would snap their hand off.
And you'd be fit enough to do it as well?
No.
No, you would. I honestly would. I don't think you realise.
I still train every day, and I'm still, but I'm getting on a bit. I'm still fit enough on a bike. You need to give yourself credit where credit is due. No, you're an absolute machine. When you say fit enough, though, yeah, I agree with you. I'm fit enough to ride a bike, and I'm fit enough to ride a bike fast. But the lads these days.
Oh, I know.
The level.
It's ridiculous.
The level in BSB now that Kyle and Bradley, you know, for even I've got to give Leon some credit now for sticking with them. He never stops training.
Fair play to him.
If you know.
Leon, by the way, how how old is Leon now? I could be putting years on him here, but I think he's about 42 or 43, or was he 43 maybe after Donington Park? All he was saying, but like third in the championship last year.
Incredible.
Like, how
honestly.
does he do it?
No idea.
This is where I still give you a bit of confidence.
I do know how he does it. Pure grit and determination.
Yeah.
You know, the lad trains his arse off. He always has done. The difference with Leon is that he's still been riding. So if we were to compare ourselves, me and Leon are a similar age, similar fitness level, but he's bike fit. There's a difference. I can spend every hour of the day in the gym. But
you can't compare to that.
No, to ride a superbike round a track at that pace. And again, I'm going back to Kyle. Kyle makes it look easy. It makes it look like it's a walk in the park.
But like that, Kyle, all through winter when nobody else was, I'm sure he was out there on Christmas Day. Yeah. He was just on a bike, whatever bike it was. And like you say, you can't beat that.
It's paramount. You know, seat time is where it's at. And just, if you've been away from it, like you were saying before, you've got a glint in your eye, would you like to go back? Yeah, I would. But I know, only because I haven't been riding a bike the whole time, I would not be at that level.
Yeah.
But the likes of Haslam, full credit to him. You know, I think he's impressed me this year. Definitely has.